All right, we are live on TikTok and live on YouTube.
Hello, everyone. Hello, world. I feel like it's been a while since we've been hanging out here
It's been a
live
minute.
together. Well, we were supposed to be live last week, but it was weekend, 4th of July weekend, had company in town, so we did not make it.
We did not.
Yeah. So this
Here
is
we are.
a little special edition of the Paul and Ashley show.
Is that our official name?
I mean, whatever. Pastor Paul and
I think Paul and Ashley live, we normally call it.
Okay. I got you. Yeah.
I don't know why your mic sounds amazing.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got the good mic. I don't know what's wrong with mine.
Huh.
Well, maybe that'll work.
So here we are and checking in with all of you. We hang out here occasionally on Sunday evenings. So thank you, Douglas. Thanks
for
the
fascist
compliment.
South Dakota.
Yeah, so we love to see all of you from around the country and sometimes
sea to shining sea.
Sometimes even people from
we're in our patriotic mode today.
Not the US. So yeah, anxious to find out where people are tuning in from. And we're going to get into our little conversation this afternoon / evening.
What are our topics today?
Okay, so we have to talk about Independence Day because we just celebrated a national holiday.
Right.
I had a great week because it was a short week. We took Monday off at my office.
Okay.
So, and I also took off Friday before. So anyway, talking
Long
about
weekend.
Independence Day, you had some things to say, not surprisingly. You had some opinions that you shared with people on the worldwide internet. So we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Is patriotism Christian?
Yeah.
Is the topic.
Yeah.
Because there seems to be a belief in America that patriotic and Christian are intertwined. And I don't think the Bible agrees, but we won't get into it.
They very much are. And I have to confess that I cannot read the comments right now on TikTok.
It says,
perhaps
Sam says, my wife wore a Dissent is Patriotic shirt to our July 4th conservative family barbecue.
Boom. How did that go?
And we have Art with us from Richmond, Virginia on YouTube. Charles from Chula Vista, California.
Great.
And Sam on TikTok. Let us know where you're joining from. So we're going to talk about is patriotism Christian? And I guess we're going to talk about is me being mean to Christians on social media Christian?
Yeah. We're going to delve into that. So you guys can offer your feedback. Not like you need our permission to do that because
Sam is from
social
Tampa.
media.
Yeah.
Oh, Tampa. Wow.
Gary from Alberta, Canada. Gary's a friend of mine.
Awesome.
Pompano Beach, Florida. All right. It's good we've
the
got
Floridians. I'm fascinated with Florida right now.
From DeSantis land. Why are you fascinated with Florida?
For that reason. And I'm just curious what it's like there on the ground. It's, it's in so much of the national spotlight, but I just like to understand, sometimes it feels like that's not the real story or, whatever. I'm just curious what it's like on the ground in local communities. Plus I may go to a conference there in October.
Oh, wow.
But
you're going to go behind the Iron Curtain.
And I'm going to go with one of my colleagues who's gay. And so we thought we would get some t-shirts that mine would say, I'm not gay, but my friend is. And then her shirt would say, I'm gay. And we would go to this conference together.
What if you just both got shirts that said, I say gay?
Better yet. Yeah, we got someone tuning in from Miami. That's fantastic. It's like the Florida contingency is showing up.
Yeah,
tonight,
we have Miami, we have Orlando, we have Tampa. So yes, we're speaking into Florida from the rest of the world.
Yep, we're in Newsom land and you're in DeSantis land, and those two are having a
never the
thing.
Twain shall meet. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then we're going to talk about what's inspiring you. So we'll all talk about that.
Yeah, you've been putting out these inspire you things like more regularly. So kind of would like to hear what is inspiring you and like you personally, and then folks who are joining in. And I've got some things that I don't know, I'm finding some inspiration from.
Taylor
So,
Swift. Many people may say Taylor Swift is inspiring them.
okay.
She seems to be quite in the conversation of America.
So this is the thing that I don't know, and why I honestly don't really pay attention to pop culture, because Paul is very on top of things. So I need not.
When you're on social media, you can't help it.
I need not know. So I rely on you for that sort of thing. Anyway.
All right. Well, welcome everyone.
Yeah.
We're glad you're here.
Thanks for tuning in. And I think is it still TikTok goes through changes. I don't always keep up, but can you still like tell your friends to come join or whatever? Share it.
Yeah.
So so help us get a crowd here. We'd love to just check in with everyone. And I wish I could see the comments. I can kind of
there's
see
one
them.
that says from Steve. He says the blonde lady looks like the lady in the first Terminator movie.
Oh, who's that?
I can't remember who played. It wasn't Jamie Lee Curtis.
Not Sigourney Weaver. Was she in it? No, that's Alien.
That's Alien.
Okay, good. Because I would probably say thank you, but I'm not sure I would welcome that.
I can picture her. Sedekana was her name in the movie. Sedekana.
Anywho,
as Arnold would say.
Okay, so blonde lady here. My name is Ashley, and I'm married to Pastor Paul. So
there you go.
Nice to meet y'all. Oh, Linda Hamilton.
Linda Hamilton. That's her. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's a huge compliment.
That is a compliment. See, well, that's her now. Oh. that's not her best picture, but
let me just say, I hope I look like that when I'm probably 20 years older than I am now. So,
oh, yeah. I wish I could see.
I mean, no offense. I mean, no offense. Yeah. So thanks so much for joining us. And we're going to jump in. So you had some videos and some things you posted this week, Paul, about whether or not patriotism is Christian. And I'm wondering if you want to unpack that a little bit here. What did you say? And what did you mean by what you said?
Well, it's become a thing in the U.S. that we have very patriotic services quite often for the 4th of July, the weekend closest to 4th of July, Memorial Day, Veterans Day. It has become, and very often American flags adorn our churches. When I was the senior leader, was my title, of what I now call a brick and mortar church, I would not allow an American flag in our church building.
Did we have a lot of people pushing for that though? Or was it just like a little bit?
I definitely had one person buy a flag and say, here, I'm going to donate this to the church. And I said, that's wonderfully generous of you, but why don't you use the flag at home? Because, and that's not because I don't like America and I love it or leave it, move to another country. It's because Jesus, I believe, specifically taught that the kingdom of heaven was above nationality. And he lived in a time, in an era where people believed their nationality made them special to God. And we live in a time today where I think our people believe our nationality makes us special to God. And I think that even the Apostle Paul said there's no longer Jew nor Greek, slave nor free. Jesus intentionally sat with the people that his nationalistic, religious people group hated. Tax collectors were considered absolute traitors to their people and to their religion, to their nationality and their religion. They were in cahoots with despot rulers of Rome. And what did Jesus do? He says, hey, Zacchaeus, I'm going to come have lunch at your house, which was a sign of honor. So I just think Jesus, in the story of the New Testament, taught we should be above nationality. And that was always my belief. Now, when we look at how Christian and nationalism are tied together, not unlike what we saw in Germany in the 30s when Christianity tied itself to a political movement, I think it's all the more important to say, I'm not sure Jesus would be on board with singing God Bless the USA. I'm proud to be an American in our Christian services, or have flag salutes or flag parades. I think we should be able to say, hey, we are very fortunate to live in this country. We have it so much better than so many people in the world, and we're happy and proud of that. But that doesn't set us apart to heaven. And actually, it puts a greater responsibility on us, I think, to live better than we are. And so anyway, that's my, Jesus was asked, should we pay tribute to Caesar? And that was one of the big issues. That was, the single issue voter issue of the day, was the taxes paid to Rome. And Jesus didn't say, no, we should overthrow Rome and not pay that tax. He said, hey, give to Caesar what is Caesar, give to God what is God's. And so I interpret all of that as Jesus being the opposite of a nationalist at a time when his people were uber nationalistic and believing they needed to overturn the government and install their religion back in charge of the government so that their country could be made great again. And so therefore, I think we ought to be resistant to patriotism as a whole in our churches, but much less now that it's become a complete marriage where many Christians believe being patriotic is a Christian act. I think that's a mindset that needs to be challenged, if not overturned.
And how'd that go for you this week? Like, what kind of response did you get from your...
Well, right now it seems like all the platforms are like smashing me. So go to my TikTok page and look at my videos and help open up the algorithm for me again. And certainly Facebook has like totally shut us down. It's crazy.
There may be a conspiracy.
I think there is.
Yeah.
I think there is. Or I think the universe may be saying, get prepared. It's about to break open again.
Yeah. I mean, not to get too distracted on that point, but I do think maybe TikTok doesn't love political stuff because there's so much focus from Congress on whether or not TikTok should be allowed in the US. So I'm wondering if they just, kind of are dialing that stuff down.
Yeah.
That's a side road.
Somebody's asking, should Christians be loyal first to their country or their church? What do you think?
Well, I probably take a little bit of exception with the word church because I think I'd probably replace it with like faith and, the commitment that you're making to live the way you want to live and out of reflection of like, your connection with God. I don't, and that's kind of the cool thing about our country is that we don't, as long as you're not harming other people, you don't have to make that choice. I will say this, are we getting a Amazon? I think we are.
I don't know.
I literally ordered all of Amazon over the weekend and it is now showing up on our doorstep. So the timing.
So you'll hear from our dog, which is our doorbell.
My bad. I was like, oh, one little tiny thing. I should order that. Oh, I forgot that other little tiny thing. So anyway, my feeling is this. I don't think when people say things like this is a Christian nation and like that's the reason for our success, et cetera, I don't have a problem with people saying that, but I feel that's true for a completely different reason than XYZ population attending an evangelical church or claiming Christ as their, Christianity as their religion. I think it's because Jesus modeled that we're supposed to connect with each other and live in sacrificial love and relationship with people. And that's what democracy requires. So like for our nation to work, we have to, and there may be other religions that have this deeply rooted as well, but for sure, growing up in an evangelical church, like there was a lot of focus on loving other people, understanding their point of view, et cetera. Like that's, to me, what makes our communities actually function.
In my church, we were taught to not consider other people's opinion. They would sway you and deceive you and would be Satan whispering in your ear like he did to Eve.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, it was always a little bit of both. But as individuals, we were supposed to like Jesus, others, yourself, like there was all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I think America is a Christian nation and not exclusively Christian, because I think other religions put this forward too. But to the extent that we are making room for connection and understanding people who are different from we are. Like that to me is Christianity.
Yeah, I'm never comfortable with the idea of we are a Christian nation. I really do believe the founding fathers specifically made us not Christian.
No, I agree. But do you know what I'm saying? Because the question is, which is more important, your faith or your country? And I'm saying, because of my faith, I love my country because I love the opportunity to live out my faith and work together with other people to make our neighborhoods, our communities good, right? I'm not saying the church necessarily teaches that, and I'm not saying that means we have to declare, the U.S. is Christian. I'm just saying that's how I choose to interpret.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would, the cop-out answer would be, I would love to hear your definition of what loyal to country means. Often loyal to country means I'm going to vote for a particular party because I want to have a strong military so we can, defeat other countries in war or feel safe or have a good economy. I think loyalty to country, I think we ought to be loyal to our communities all the time. And I actually think, Jeremiah 29:7 says, pray for the city where I've placed you, says the Lord, for in its welfare, you'll have your welfare. So I think loyalty to our community, to our people, to the least in our community is a really important thing. But loyalty, I believe, means loyalty to the divine of heaven, which says, seek justice for the poor, the foreigner, the marginalized, and the economically disadvantaged. So to me, that's what loyalty means. So loyalty of country, which means I want to make sure we have better things than every other country in the world. I don't think Jesus would endorse that in the slightest. And Christianity was radical in that it began to offer connection to the Jewish community, to Gentiles. And so I just don't think the Bible reflects we're supposed to be nationalistic at all. We can love our people, though, in our community and say we want to take care of our community. So as a country in the United States, I think, yes. How can we take care of the poor? How can we do immigration better so it's not making our hard heart and evil? Is that loyalty to country? Yeah, I think sometimes we got to look at what we're doing first. And, the old famous saying is America's great because she's good. And when she ceases to be good, she'll no longer be great. I think there is a lot to that. And I think if we ever were good, I think we've lost some of our heart for goodness over the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah. Well,
if not a little bit longer than that.
I think that was going on for a while, but it started to get revealed, when President Obama was inaugurated, sort of like peeled back the curtains on a lot of stuff.
Here's a question. Do you feel a greater sense of fraternity with a Christian in China or with a non-Christian in America? I do not feel a Christian fraternity worldwide. I feel a human fraternity worldwide.
I think that's probably the way I would answer that too.
So again, I'm going to I feel more connected to the person in my neighborhood and in my community than I do a Christian around the world. I don't really think there's supposed to be this otherizing of everybody, that Christians around the world are the best and we have to make sure we take care of them and tell everybody else go to hell.
Yeah. And I'm reflecting back on, I think it was Sam who said his wife wore a shirt to the Independence Day family gathering that said,
dissent is patriotic.
Dissent is patriotic. And I know that's a little bit of a kind of, you want to push back on somebody, but that is such an important point. It really is the distinguishing feature of our nation, at least to the extent that we make room for that, right? Like rational thought, reasoned arguments, intending to see the 360 of something. I mean, those are, to me, our founding characteristics. Obviously, we don't see them on display much these days, but my God almighty, if we don't have dissent, we don't have the freedom to dissent.
I don't get patriotism that says you love it or leave it. I think
Yeah.
supposedly what makes America great is
Yeah.
I can disagree with you and I can do it loudly. I
Yeah.
can disagree with the president and I can do it loudly. And this idea of like, no, you have to be loyal to the country, which means you bite your tongue and don't say anything about
Right.
where we screw up.
Right.
That's not patriotic.
Love it or leave it is boosterism. It's not patriotism.
Yeah, it's
You know?
blind fealty.
Yep. And I'll tell you, I mean, having been in public office, it's not fun. It's not fun when people like, I don't know, figuratively punch you in the nose and all kinds of other body parts. But you do get used to it, and you do like start to appreciate that is absolutely fundamental for keeping communities together. It's like there's got to be room for people to show up and disagree with you and whatever.
And patriotism has become politicized. Even the flag has become a little bit of a politically divisive symbol, which I think is tragically sad. But just like President Obama was hugely criticized because one day he came off what's the name of the helicopter of the president?
Marine One, and didn't salute the soldiers standing at the bottom of the steps, as if that was some major crime for a president. Nobody realizing that the president did not salute that man standing at the bottom of the steps until Ronald Reagan started doing it. No, Dwight Eisenhower was a 5-star general and he didn't do it. So it has been politicized, and so I think we have to be careful about letting our religion be prostituted to politics. I think the Bible is very explicitly against that. Might I tell my story of standing at the steps of Air Force One?
Yes.
So this is a dog leg. This is deviating from our Pastor Paul content right now. So in February of 2014, some of you who are from the Central Valley of California may remember that President Obama visited California's Central Valley to see the effects of the drought. He came in on Air Force One, the only airport that was big enough to accommodate is that a 740? It's like,
I think it is a 747.
It is an enormous plane.
Although I think Trump got a new one, didn't he?
I don't know. Anyway, was the Fresno Yosemite International Airport. I happened to be serving as mayor of Fresno at the time. And so I was calling anybody and everybody who would take my calls at the White House to say, when the president lands, I would like to meet with him, please. We have very important things going on in Fresno, and I need to be able to tell him about those things. And all the staff kept saying, it's not possible. No. Like the president comes down the stairs. He's getting on like a military helicopter, and they're taking him to this farm way out on the western side of the valley. And there's no place for you to have a meeting. I was like, I'll just come on the plane. Not realizing that I have never once in my, like there's like the protocol is like, the plane doesn't land, the stairs come down and somebody walks up it. Like, the stairs come down and like all that happens is just like people come off and then the president comes off and it's like, wow. So I was like, but I was begging. And so I broke through a little bit. I finally got told, look, you can like be on the tarmac, and however much time that it takes for the president to step off the bottom stair and make his way to this next helicopter he's getting on, that's your chance to talk to him. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll take it. So I show up at the airport thinking to myself, every like local elected official is going to be like a little rope line. So I'm going to have maybe like 2 seconds to just be like, President Obama, So, but it turns out my advocacy must have worked because I was the only one allowed to be on the tarmac. And so,
we have pictures of you standing at the bottom of the steps.
So like, it is just such a scene. This plane is absolutely beautiful. It lands, it's bigger than you could ever imagine. It's like as big as a football field. And there's like literally media from around the world, like all focused on like, this little spot where the plane's going to stop and, here comes the red carpet and down they come. So when the plane lands, the door
and Marine One is sitting there on the tarmac.
It wasn't Marine One. It was because they didn't fly that out. It was like some other military thing that they had to get out there to then take him to, where he was going. Yeah. So
Wasn't he going to Palm Springs or something?
No. That he was going to Joe Del Bosque's farm on the west side.
Okay.
So, again, local people may know Joe.
I don't know
anyway,
who that
so
is.
just to see the drought. Okay. Anyway, so I'm standing there. It's like midday, and they have the two Marine soldiers posted at the on either side of the red carpet where the plane's going to land and pull up. And I'm realizing I hadn't eaten that day. And the sun is beating down, and I'm so nervous. And all of a sudden, I start to like, oh my God, I am going to pass out in front
You're
of
gonna be on America's
all
Funniest
these.
Home Videos.
Like, I was just like, please God, please God, please God, please God, please God. And so I like, shook it off, whatever. So here comes the plane, the doors open, down comes the various dignitaries. It was Senator Boxer, and it was our local congressman, different people coming off the plane. And then here comes the president. And so I had practiced my speech. I had like 3 things I needed from him, and I didn't have time to say them all. So I finally, when he showed up, I shook his hand and I just said, I used the name of his cabinet people. I said, tell your Secretary of HUD and Transportation that whenever I call, the answer is yes. And he got a kick out of that. And we shook hands. Somebody from my local press corps counted the number of seconds that we talked, and it was like 113 seconds
Nice.
of yes. And then he got on the helicopter.
So I think all told, like you met the president like 3 times when you were mayor, and
maybe more. I don't maybe like 5 times.
190 seconds of interaction.
Yes,
or something like that.
I had 2 half hugs and about maybe like 180 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's more than most.
Like, these like these kinds of pictures, like half hugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a very lengthy story, and
well, somebody
violating
said it's so cool.
all the TikTok rules of like, don't go on and on. But
somebody says Gary says he hears that Obama is gracious and kind.
Totally.
Would you agree with that?
Totally.
You remember how evil, like right-wing media always said he was?
Yeah.
And how he and Michelle would be divorced the second they were, he was out of the White House.
Yep. And, I was a Republican at the time. And so, I was like shunned for having, accepting any invitation to the White House or like trying to work with the administration and, on behalf of like this poor city that I represent. Like the feds are going, hey, what do you need? What do you need? We want to help you. And I would say, well, we need this, we need that. And then people would get so mad at me just for having a conversation with these folks and accepting their help,
I think we were already pretty leery of the Republican Party before you got involved there. And then, and then in those interactions, it's like, wow.
Oh, totally. And I think the Obama wave just freaked out the right. That's a cool trick.
Sorry. Yeah, it's my new glasses.
I know.
You can pop that off and change the color of your glasses.
I love that. I love the blue. It looks cool on camera.
Yeah, it does.
Anyway, all right. So we went down that rabbit hole because
yes, we did.
We were talking about the soldier at the base of
the stairs,
Marine One, and how wrong
Marine
Obama was to people thought it was so offensive that he didn't salute. And all I was trying to say is, I know what it feels like to stand there looking at those Marines. And you know what? They do not look you in the eye. And I thought to myself, I'm going to pass out in front of these 2 men and they're not even going to blink.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do we go from
all
there?
All right. So
the show, we've come to a dead stop.
I'm sorry.
But it was an interesting story, and we have great pictures. The Air Force One is very impressive when it shows up.
Also, I thank God fixed the back of my hair that day because I don't always. And I thought to myself, like the whole press corps, like all back here, and the pictures are, me from behind, and I'm like, oh.
There is something about the president coming to town. I remember when I was in college, the first George Bush, H.W. Bush, came and spoke at Fresno State where I was a student. And so they blocked off the road in front of our apartment. And, we all kind of peeked out the door and saw the president's, what do you call it? The motorcade
Yep.
go by.
Yep.
And he made the big mistake of saying how much he He said, I don't want to see the goddamn
Dancing
dancing raisins
raisins.
anymore.
No,
And that lost him some votes. In
but you know what?
Fresno.
He did win California.
He did.
That's the last,
He's the last
Republican nominee to win California in a
Yep.
presidential. As remember who told us that?
Who?
Jeb Bush. When
Ah.
he came to California and we went up to see him, like for the 5 minutes that he was running, he reminded us, my dad's the last Republican who won this state.
Was that but he lost that election, right? Or would it be the one he won or the one he lost?
It would have been it had to have been the one he won.
Okay.
Like
Probably.
he wouldn't have won California and lost the U.S. I don't think. Anyway, somebody out there can fact check
Hillary
us on
Clinton
that.
won California and lost the election.
Yeah, but a Bush. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
a Republican winning California, they're going to win all those other Republican states. So
Truth.
anyway,
Truth.
hey, so we're a little off track, but where we started this whole conversation was patriotism. Paul posted this week about how Christianity and patriotism are not the same thing. They need to be bifurcated. You got a lot of reactions on that point, as per usual.
And even some of the people that are usually pretty positive were like, well, I mean, the Bible doesn't say have yellow paint on your walls in the church, but it's not banned. And so I can get that point, but I just think at a time where Christianity is literally becoming dangerous in our country because it's creating insurrectionists. I've never thought it's okay to be patriotic in church, but even more so now. I think we have to press against it. And you can even see there was a couple of comments about, well, you guys are Satanists because we're talking against patriotism in a church.
Yeah.
That just shows how intertwined Christianity and nationalism have become.
Yeah. So I assumed that person was joking when they
Oh, really? Maybe they were.
Like, you can't possibly be thinking that, can you, dude? Anyway, you're getting some props for your curly hair today.
Thank you.
Your curls
Thank
are
you.
looking very defined, which is awesome.
Okay. Good.
So getting props for that. All right. So we wanted to also talk about a little different subject next thing, but I want to, before we do that, just remind folks that we rely on all of you, the Pastor Paul community, to keep doing this sort of thing. And if you haven't already, you should go to Pastor Paul's website, sign up for his newsletter, be a subscriber if that's something you're able to do, starting at $5.99 a month. That allows us to barely squeak by and
basically pay our expenses.
For this. And, we've made the decision that, Paul makes a big sacrifice to try to pursue this community and developing this community and supporting all of you full time and as his profession. And so we do ask for your support. So you can find out more at pastor-paul.com. And you have subscriber opportunities, and then also you do coaching.
And
one-on-one.
Kim is asking right now, when do you typically go live? The best way to know is to be a subscriber on the Pastor Paul website, pastor-paul.com. I usually send out announcements we're going to be live, or I'll post it on the community chat board. But in general, we do this once a month on the first Sunday of the month. We skipped last Sunday to this Sunday because of
4th of July.
4th of July.
Last weekend.
Yeah, because we were doing patriotic things. No, kidding.
Yes, to be specific, we were eating a ginormous barbecue last Sunday night. So
that is about as patriotic.
That is very American.
That is very American.
We were being very American. Okay, so the next thing I was hoping you would talk a little bit about is every now and then, I know I certainly get feedback, and I know you get feedback a lot, that people feel offended / hurt that you take such an aggressive tone with your posts, and are you kind of seem to get a lot of joy out of roughing up people on social media who are being bullies or whatever. So maybe just talk a little bit about that. What is that about for you, and where are you coming from on that? And would love to get people's input and insight on this very topic. So
people feeling mean to them.
They do.
Yes,
you get. Yeah.
Because, okay, putting aside that Christians have become the biggest snowflakes in our culture and are so easily offended. Sorry, Ashley. I read the Bible, and Jesus had no empathy for religious people who used religious law to try to empower themselves to put others down, to hold others down. He was loudly opposed to them, sarcastic. He made public jokes of them. And there's not much of a moment where he was like, oh, I'm going to try to build a bridge with this religious person who is marginalizing the least in the culture to make themselves look self-righteous. When Jesus said, you strain a gnat to swallow a camel, that was pure sarcasm, mocking the guys who were talking about our self-righteousness is built in how we eat according to Mosaic law. We are pure. He says, you'll tithe. They would take their grains of cumin and count them out and take a tenth of the grains and turn them into the temple to say, look at me, I tithe. And he said, isn't that great that you do that? And then you treat people like shit. And so that is what I'm trying to do, is to say what right-wing Christianity has become in America is not benign. It's not, and I used to think this, like, oh, yeah, we're a little off politically, but we're so good, it's okay, until I realized that it wasn't. Right-wing Christianity, which has become very pervasive in Christianity as a whole in our country, and we're all responsible to it if we call ourselves a Christian, is not benign. It is harming people. It is putting our culture in danger. It is a group of people trying to impose religious law into civil code. And I think Jesus specifically stood against it, and the people that he loudly, publicly, and sarcastically criticized were hugely religious nationalists. And I think the Bible's very clear on that. So what I'm trying to do is stand firmly against those who would marginalize other people. So the marginalized will have a voice standing as an ally. Not that I'm a savior, but an ally who's willing to say to my own people, as a former staunch Republican Christian, Rush Limbaugh listener, I'm willing to say, I was wrong, and it's just as wrong today, maybe even more so. And then to allow people who are on the fringe, who are like, gosh, there's something wrong with what we're doing in our church, but I guess this is what we're supposed to do. Maybe this is what God requires of us, to be sort of right-wing assholes. And I want them to hear me say, no, those people are not godly assholes. They're just assholes. And be able to say, oh, cool, you mean I don't have to be that way? So, and I think there needs to be a voice that does that loudly and firmly. And I get a lot of people saying, thank you for what you do. And even people who are like, pastors who are like, keep saying what you're saying because I can't say it, because I would lose my people in my church. And so that's why I do what I do. I want to be liked as much as anybody. And at times I'm like, oh, maybe I should be nicer. And everybody's like, hey, let's build bridges. This is the bridge builder. She's amazing at it. And I think my job is to like blow some things up, so then the bridge builders can come in and say, oh, wow, sorry, Paul did that to you. Let me build a bridge. But inside they're like, yeah, but thank goodness he kind of blew something up, so that we can start to rebuild something new. So that's my explanation.
Yeah, I love it. And you're getting a lot of good comments, and, you know, a few questions and such on the comments. And if those of you who are seeing my face right now think I'm scowling, I just cannot see the comments either with or without my glasses. So I promise I'm just trying to see what you guys are saying. And
by the way, when Jesus said, they hated me, they're going to hate you too, he was talking about religious people. He was talking about religious nationalists. And they hated him because he was friendly to those they felt didn't deserve friendship from godly people. And he said, those people hated me. So in some ways, when particularly one of our local right-wing politicians says really horrible things about me on Twitter, I'm kind of like, okay, they said very similar things about Jesus. So,
yeah. And I'm seeing Robin's comment on Facebook that bullies cause pain. Let's see. Oh, bullies cause pain and damage that lasts a lifetime. And Douglas, trying to impose rules on people that the majority disagree with equals fascism. So I think.
And I got a comment over here that nothing you say is true, heretic. So,
oh yeah, I mean,
thank you.
Those are usual kinds of comments.
Jesus was called a sinner, a winebibber by religious nationalists. They said, I guess we're right to assume you have a demon and are a Samaritan, because he didn't adhere to their religious nationalist belief. And so being called a heretic, beautiful, I'll take it.
Do you ever worry that you are saying things that like you're painting with too broad of a brush, and that in the process you do push people away from trying to bring them in and connect with the others that Christians are kind of putting into a corner? Again,
because I have a natural bent to want to be liked. Yes. But I also think we see in the Bible often, two things. One, Jesus once said, if you want to go to heaven, you have to eat my flesh and drink my blood. And then he stopped talking. And a huge crowd that was there was like,
that's
WTF?
True. They just like walked away. Yeah.
What are you talking about? We're out of here. They were there until he broad brushed and they're like, we're out of here.
Yeah.
They took offense and walked away. Jesus often said, a statement we've learned from an old friend of ours, Jesus would offend the mind to see the heart.
To reveal the heart. Yeah.
And so, yes, at times I'm going to push the limits, just like I did as a sports radio guy, to get people to react. And I want to see what the heart is. And so just today I had a person say, hey, I think you missed the context on that, and answered in a very gracious way. And I said, oh gosh, well, I would love to hear how you see the context of that Bible verse. That's how we answer open-hearted people. But then when people come in and say, you're a heretic, you're a Satanist, that person's heart has already determined to be hardened by the theology of what I think is religion that is off in America today. And so sometimes all you can do is, if they're offended by what you're saying, then I know that there's not a place to reap a harvest.
And I'm asking all the questions that I know, like friends and associates of ours would be sitting in here, like asking, and like people from probably our former church community that are like, oh, Paul, he's gone to the dark side. He's like, Satan, bait of Satan or whatever. So I'm playing the devil's advocate here for a minute.
Satanist advocate, according to this guy.
Yeah. Okay, so like we are standing up against the religious right that is perpetuating hate in the name of Jesus, and not actually putting on display like what Jesus was really like when he was on the earth. That's basically what you're saying. So those people who are perpetuating that, should we hate them? Should we hate them and be like, you guys suck, let's blow you up, because to make room for all these people who are being bullied right now? How do you reconcile that these people too, as objectionable as they are to you, that how do you love them? Do you feel responsible for any sort of message of love and hope for the people that you are like shoving in the chest?
So when Jesus called religious guys whitewashed tombs, do you think he hated them?
No, probably not.
That is when he said they are sons of Satan, they were arguing they were sons of Abraham, and he says your father is the devil. Was he hating them?
Maybe in that moment, yeah. Then
that's the question of is it hate to say you've gone down a dark path and what you're doing is horribly, horribly, horribly wrong, I mean, Nicodemus came to Jesus in the middle of the night, asked what I think was a legitimate question. And Jesus says to him, "You're a teacher of Israel. You don't know the answer to this question?" Like, that's a sarcastic response. And I think, again, then Nicodemus responds to that sarcasm, open-hearted. And then Jesus has a really interesting conversation with him. So I don't think it's hatred. The Christians say love the sinner, hate the sin, and deconstructionists say love the religionist, hate the religion. And that's what I think is doing. I don't feel a need to hate, but I do hate what people are doing. I do hate that what you're doing leads queer people to kill themselves, leads women to feel abandoned by healthcare and the ability to control their bodies. I think those are horrible, horrible things to do. And I think Jesus cared more about the woman caught in adultery, if we want to use that term, than he cared about his reputation with religious people. And so I actually don't think it's hatred. And interestingly, I had somebody who used to go to our church who called me, and we got together on Zoom, and he said exactly what you said. "I really thought you had gone off the cliff." And he said, I lately I've been watching more of your stuff, and I think I'm going off the cliff too. So in some ways, I really do believe I'm going to be invited back into that space at some point when people really do start saying, "Hey, this is off the rails." And I liken it to Richard Nixon being able to go into communist China and build relationship because he was a staunch anti-communist. And I think as a staunch anti-Christian nationalist, maybe I'm going to be given space to speak into Christian nationalism in the future and say, hey, dudes, maybe we got it wrong. That's my belief. And in a lot of ways, it's how I'm wired to respond. And I just refuse to hate how I'm wired anymore. I was taught by Christianity to hate my humanness, to hate my responses to things. And I just refuse to do it anymore because I don't think that's what the divine spirit of heaven calls us to do.
Trying to keep up with the comments here. And
somebody talking about their mom and dad have left their church after 49 years.
Right wing. Yeah. Wow. That's not something you see every day, because usually people who've been in the church for that long, they're going to stick around. I think that's the thing that's a little bit hard for me is I just always kind of want to protect my heart and guard my heart from like doing to other people what I'm accusing them of doing, and I don't know. That could just be the difference between you and me. And like you said, you're wired
differently.
You're wired to blow up the bridges that I'm like desperately trying to build. And I just think it's kind of goes back to being open-hearted towards one another. And like in my line of work, and which is community-based and like kind of like my personal and professional all blends together. And I desperately try to bring people together who have very different experiences and very different points of view so that the whole can move forward, the collective, the community, whatever it might be. And really work hard to try to get people to see how the other, like, no, they're not that bad. They're trying to do this. Don't you see? And I kind of like play that intermediary role a lot. But in that, I have learned to have value for advocacy and for people who come in to like sort of blow things up, because there is a need to do that to disrupt the status quo. And it's easier in my line of work, so it's not like faith and like Jesus stuff. And so it feels like a little bit less personal. But I do find myself a lot saying to like government officials or people who represent the sort of the way things are right now, and they just get so offended when, when community advocates come in and just like punch them in the nose. And I'm always like, look, they're helping create an environment for change. And do we not see that we need change? And so, I get, so yeah, it would be great if people in the church space had value for dissent, the advocacy, the kind of agitation that you're doing, et cetera. They don't really seem to right now. And so, people are just kind of like drawing lines and going to their camps.
Well, and I think what you're talking about to a government official is, you're the person in power. You have the first responsibility to lay down your weapons and open your heart. And I would say, right-wing Christianity is the power base. They are the power. They're the ones
so. I mean, it's
that need to lay down.
It's the status quo for sure.
Yeah, they are fighting for a status quo that intentionally harms people. And I'm not saying each individual intentionally harms people, but sometimes they're very unaware that their political support is giving power to people who intentionally harm people.
Yeah.
Christians cry about oppression all the time. And I just say, you are the wealthiest, most politically connected, politically powerful, oppressed group in the history of the world. You're not oppressed. You're just being told you're oppressed on a regular basis to create fear. But I believe in any of the issues that are the big ones of the day, if we would open our heart and say, maybe my community, my sect doesn't exactly have this right, and maybe I should listen to some other opinions, that could change everything. And really, like immigration, if we just said, okay, let's have an open heart to want to find a good, human-loving solution to the issue rather than use it as a political football and use human beings as a political football, I believe a good strategy could come. But right now, it's too big of a politicized issue, and we don't even want, I don't think our leaders want a resolution to the issue because it's just too powerful of a voter movement and a fear creator. So when I speak against Christianity, I'm speaking against the status quo and the power base of our culture in a lot of ways, and saying, hey, you guys have a responsibility. And so it was my second point. The Bible often looks at people in people groups. And so many Christians say, oh, well, I'm not that bad version of Christian nationalist. I just love my country and love my religion, and they go together. Or others will say, well, my church isn't like that, so I'm not responsible. But we are all responsible to the community, the mindset, the principality of Christianity. And as Brian McLaren said, talking about his book, Do I Stay Christian? He said, it's okay to stay Christian, but it's not okay to stay silent. Mm-hmm. And we have to speak out against what Christianity has become in America. Yeah. I happen to be somebody who's wired to do that in very, very strong language. And you're somebody wired to want to say, hey, let's have open-hearted conversation.
Yeah. Now, don't you guys want to all come over for dinner and like listen to the two of us? It's been interesting. But, what we have, I think, a mutual appreciation for the role that each other plays. And I really do crave the change. I'm in my heart, I'm so committed to radical transformation of our communities, because, like the way we're going right now is just it is not okay. And I think about 20 years from now, 50 years from now, it's going to be even worse. So like I do my thing, and I realize you're kind of creating openings and creating opportunities for things to be reconstituted in a way that corrects past problems and sins and mistakes and all of that.
The second any right winger is willing to say, hey, I'm open to hear another thought, I'm there, and we'll have a wonderful, loving conversation. And I'm not saying you have to change to agree to my opinion, but you can't be screaming heretic and wolf in sheep's clothing.
And Satanist.
and Satanists and expect us to say,
Yeah.
oh, let's build bridges. You cannot build
Yeah.
bridges with somebody who's in that mindset.
So we only have a few minutes left because we have some remaining episodes of Ted Lasso to watch. We need to get, I'm committed to getting through season 3 by the end of the weekend.
Season 1 was great. Season 2 sucked. Season 3, I think, is kind of.
Plus, our dog is going crazy and about to jump up here.
Because he knows it's TR.
But we're going to end. It is treat time for him. We're going to end on an inspirational note. And I'm just would ask all of you who are listening for a second, just think for a minute. Like, where are you finding inspiration right now? Is it from
Inspire You is the name of our newsletter.
Yes. So make sure you go to Paul's website, pastor-paul.com. Yes. Pastor dash. Don't forget the dash.
If you go to pastorpaul.com, you go to a crazy guy's website. So go to pastor-paul.
LOL. Here come all the hater responses to that statement. Pastor-paul.com. And you can sign up for eInspire. But
it's
Inspire You.
Because we have Reconstruction.
That's it. Thank you.
Coaching and mentorship.
Let me stay in brand here. So yeah, where are you finding inspiration? Sometimes that comes from a connection, a relationship, a project at work, something from nature, something you're reading. Where are you finding inspiration?
So you're asking people to put that into
the chat. Yeah. Put it in the chat. And I'm also asking you to.
Well, why don't you go first?
Oh, okay.
You've been inspired and I've been talking a lot. So you jump.
Okay. So I have really enjoyed reading this book called The Zealot. It is a little bit old. Oh yeah. You've got it right here. I'm sure a lot of you have already been all over this.
Backwards on TikTok.
So someone recommended this to me. And then a few of our former church friends
Reza Aslan
were like, oh yeah. I think it came out in 2014. So I really enjoyed reading it. I finished it last night and it helps. It's kind of separates out, who is Jesus, the historical figure, the actual human being, Jesus of Nazareth. What do we know? What can we scientifically prove about the community and the history of the community that he was born into? And then, had his public ministry, et cetera. And
by scientifically, you mean by historically studying writings?
Yes. Yes.
History.
Academically, the things that are not a matter of faith, what is a matter of science and verification, et cetera. And then sort of put the Christology stuff aside for a minute and just consider what was it like to live on the earth at that time and be in Jerusalem? Or, I love that because I think it strips away so much stuff that we kind of tend to just throw onto.
Somebody's asking me to hold the book up. Keep talking.
Yeah. Zealot. And obviously we're not paid to make a promotional thing here.
Yes,
I'm just telling you, I actually just really wanted to read it and I enjoyed reading it. It's very, very well done. And I wanted to finish that before I start my next book, very different from this one, but also commended to us by some of the same people, called The Critical Journey, I think it is. The Critical Journey. So I'll talk more about that maybe in the future. But
thank you, Rev Val, by the way. She said a nice compliment, so I appreciate it.
So I'm just enjoying and I'm in my deconstruction process and going through that for a couple of years and married to a person who talks about nothing but that. Anyway, it's been fun to kind of just work my way through stripping out the cultural stuff, stripping out the religious stuff and seeing where I land. So,
and gives you sort of a historical context of why Paul wrote the things that he wrote versus James,
the brother of Jesus, and
their beliefs didn't necessarily parallel.
Not at all. They were
they didn't necessarily like each other very
and
much.
It was drama. It was church split. I mean, it was aggressive hatred of different ideas about Jesus and Judaism and Christianity, etc. And yet, James was Jesus' brother and hung out with them and such, so.
Thank you, Amy, for the hair compliment. I appreciate it. And to know there were Jewish Christians that felt the two went together very firmly. And Paul Saul was one who felt like, no, the two have to be extricated from one another so that I can go, some may harshly say, market this to the Gentiles, because he's trying to sell this religious practice to the Gentiles. And the Jewish Christians are saying, yes, they have to be circumcised. And so Gentiles are
Kind
saying,
of a tough sell.
what? I have to do what to join your religion? Hell to the no. And so Paul was, okay, I got to get rid of this circumcision thing.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Yeah.
So
They ultimately agreed on that point, apparently.
yeah.
But anyway, so what are you finding inspiration in and from?
What was my answer earlier today? I can't remember.
Honestly, I don't remember. I mean, I know you've been really fostering kind of spiritual connection lately.
I think just in learning about self-love and leaning into it through my own personal journey work, therapy work, I wasn't ever taught self-love. And in fact, coming from a very abusive background, was taught everybody's anxiety gets to be dumped on me, being the black sheep of our family, the scapegoat of the family. All of the sin of the household gets dumped on me. So shame, carrying anxiety, feeling like wanting something for me was so wrong. And God hated it. And there was such shame. And so coming to a place of starting to say, is there another way to live? Like, I can love myself. I can advocate for my needs, has been a huge change. And so that goes to a whole lot of things. And I think one of my Inspire Yous I've sent out, which you can subscribe at pastor-paul.com, was about, family and picking family around you. And when Jesus felt like mom and brothers in Matthew and Mark, I think the story is in there. His brothers and his mother, the Virgin Mary, came to see him. And the historical belief around the story is that they felt like he was embarrassing the family line. They had heard from religious people around, kind of like me, do you know what Jesus is doing? You need to go get him and stop him. And when Mary and the brothers showed up to get Jesus, he said, my family are these people who believe with me here, not those people over there. And just telling people, be around people who affirm who you are, have your best interest at heart. Even Jesus knew there was a time that he had to build a boundary, even with the Virgin Mary. We can assume they made up sometime later in life because she was there at the crucifixion and he told John to take care of her, but even he built a boundary. And so I've just been inspired by the idea that religion tells us we're original sinners, we're dirt, we're depraved flesh. But I think Jesus' message was, no, you're incredibly valuable. And I'm here not to condemn, but to reconcile relationship to heaven. And so that's what's inspiring me.
Yay. Awesome. Well, listen, we are past our time and want to let everyone get on with their weekends. And as I mentioned, we have some Ted Lasso to watch, so we must go as well. But please do stay in touch. You can always find Pastor Paul online, pastor-paul.com, all the social media platforms.
Unconventional Pastor Paul is my social media moniker.
Unconventional Pastor Paul. And reach out if you have questions. If you're feeling like Nicodemus, that you're like, I really hate everything about you, but I have some questions, and you have an open heart and you want to engage, slide into the DMs and you'll find a very open and receptive other end of that conversation with Paul. And
Amy CGS, who's a very good creator on here, is saying it's wonderful to see me and nice to meet you.
Awesome.
So there
Thank
you go.
you.
And Kim has asked this question a few times, and she said, didn't you used to go live more often? And yes. And some of that is just because I'm in the midst of a life journey. And so there are days when I've had to give myself permission to do less content, but I'm starting to get revved back up. So I think you'll see me around more often, and we intend to do this once a month.
Yeah, and we said before, make sure you're on the email list, and then you'll know. Like Paul will usually send out a notice before he goes live. So
and on the
that's a good
community chat. Yeah.
that's a good way to stay in touch. But love hanging out with you guys, and really, really hope you have a good week and month. We'll see you in early August, if not before. And tell your friends about pastor-paul.com and come hang out with us on a regular basis.
Yeah, and watch my videos and like them and subscribe and all that stuff. Help me get that algorithm churning again, okay?
We have to beat the algo. All right, you guys.
Love you all.
See you soon.
Good night. Let's say goodbye to TikTok. And Douglas. Douglas is inspired by music. Thank you,
Love
Douglas,
it.
for always being here. Love you. All right. See you guys.